Jordan's already told you. I'm Kate Yates. I work at SFA Connect, which is an independent lead generation and research company based in the UK. We focus heavily on events. But before this, I was a researcher at the University of Salford, where one of my areas of interest was the built environment for people with dementia. The majority of my research was looking at care homes, and acute care settings for people with dementia. But you know, some of these lessons can be applied across different sectors. I'm also a Dementia Friends champion. Dementia Friends is a national initiative which is run by the Alzheimer Society. Being a champion means that I can actually train other people to become a dementia friend. Although now, as things have moved on, you can do this online if you wish to do so by watching a couple of videos. So that's something that you can all do if you'd wanted to at the end of the session. I completed my champions training, you know, partly for my job, but mainly because I had family, close friends who had dementia. So I thought it would, you know, it was really important I understood the condition and how to support people with it. Before I start today's session, I have to let you know I'm not a healthcare expert. I'm not a dementia care expert. This is just information that I've learned through Alzheimer's Society initiative, also obviously through my research at the university. But I hope that you'll find it useful and you'll be able to apply it in some of your work. And I also understand that this is an emotive subject for a lot of people. So, you know, if it's causes you any distress, then obviously please feel free to step out or turn off. I think the best way to go through today is that I'll present, and then if we have time for questions or discussions at the end, then we can, but if not, my email is going to be made available, so you can send me any emails. And then I've got a list of kind of resources at the end of the presentation, should you wish to have a look at those. Okay, so today I'll be giving an overview of what dementia is, what its impact is, including the bookcase analogy. I think it's really important for us to understand the disease before we look at applying it to the built environment, and why it is important for a venue to be dementia friendly, looking at kind of general tips that can be applied to the built environment, and then as well as the built environment, the people within it and preparation before meetings is obviously very important. So I'll just talk about those a little bit, and then some case studies. Okay, so first of all, just an overview of what dementia is. It's one of the greatest health challenges of our generation. It's a huge impact financially for society, as well as emotionally for those people who have it, those people who are caring for people with it. I'm sure that all of you, I would say, know somebody with dementia, or at least know somebody who knows somebody with dementia. So, you know, it's a really big issue for society. They're projected to be over 1 million people with it in the UK by 2025, and this is just going to grow year on year to 1.6 in 2040. We probably all know that the likelihood of getting dementia increases with age, but it's not a normal part of aging. You know, it's not everybody who gets older is going to get dementia, but you're more likely to get it with age. And dementia can also affect younger people. We'd say that's somebody 65 and under. That's called young onset or early onset dementia. And so this is why we need to consider kind of workspaces, social spaces for people who actually do have dementia. In fact, in 2022, the World Health Organization launched a blueprint to tackle the challenge. It's such a huge challenge, and it was the first of its kind in terms of non-communicable diseases. So that was all about, you know, what research we should be doing in it. What care should be provided for people with dementia, because actually the funding for dementia care research and dementia research is so much lower than other diseases. So the World Health Organization is trying to tackle this along with obviously other organizations, more national organizations. So what is dementia? Probably most of you here have heard of Alzheimer's, and that's probably the most common type of dementia. So dementia is an umbrella term, and it describes diseases and cognitive and conditions that cause loss of cognitive function. So, as I said, Alzheimer's is the one that most people will get, but there's also vascular dementia, there's Lewy body dementia, there's frontotemporal dementia, there's also lots of others, but they're the 4 key ones. And symptoms, they are varied between different people, but the key symptoms are obviously memory loss, and that's mood changes, there's problems with communication and reasoning, and difficulty in daily activities, and that's because of maybe functioning is a little bit hard, but also memory loss. So getting ready in the morning can be really difficult for a person with dementia. But that's at the later stages, really. It is a progressive disease, so it generally will go from early, middle to late. And we can't, no one can say how long that's going to last for, because it's different for different people. We've got these different diseases, it's different in each different disease. So no one can say you will have dementia for X amount of years, or the early stage will impact you for this many years and then you'll move on to middle. It does vary from person to person, but what we do know, or what literature says, is that you can live within those early and middle stages for a number of years. And actually in those early stages, people may not know you've got dementia. You may not know yourself that you've got dementia. So you can live a very normal life in those early stages of dementia. So I just wanted to do the bookcase analogy, because I learned this when I became a Dementia Friends champion, and I found it really useful to understand what dementia is. So when we look at how it feels to have dementia, or what it is to have dementia, this is how we would explain it. So imagine that I'm an 80-year-old woman, and I have a bookcase next to me with different shelves, and in the bookcase there are a number of books, and those books are facts and memories that I've made up during the years. So my early childhood memories are on the bottom shelf, and then so that will be when I remember being with my mum and dad, or my brothers and sisters, or going to nursery school. And then we can move up to say the middle years, when maybe I'm working, I might have a husband or a wife, my own children. And then the later memories are at the top of this bookcase, and then memories of what you're doing right now. So perhaps I'm living at a care home at this stage. What happens when you get dementia is that bookcase gets shaken, and actually this is the factual memory that we're talking about. So this bookcase for the factual memory is quite flimsy. So if it gets shaken, the first books that are going to fall out are those top level books. So your more present day memories, the things that have just happened. So that's why you might, when you meet someone with dementia, they don't remember what they did yesterday, but they can remember, what happened in school 40 years ago. And in terms of kind of when we think about the built environment, the impact here is they might not recognize these new fancy taps that you have in a hotel because you have to wave your hands in front of them. They may not recognize a kettle. You might see somebody putting a kettle, an electric kettle, which looks a bit like an old-fashioned kettle, onto a hob, because they think they can remember when they had a kettle in the 50s and that's what they did. So that's your factual memory. Now, I just want to explain that we also have an emotional memory, and emotional memories are also in a bookcase, but this bookcase is a lot sturdier. So when it gets shaken by dementia, you don't actually lose so many books. So I just want to give a quick example of this. So let's say that I go to the seaside with my son, and we have a lovely day, it's so much fun, and we're laughing, and I have an ice cream, and we have a wonderful time. And then the next day, I can't remember what we did. And someone said, what did you do yesterday? I can't remember because that's my factual memory. Those memories have gone. But what I can remember when I see my son are those lovely feelings, because we had such a nice time, you know, and I know that he's someone that I love and I trust. So you keep those emotional memories a lot longer than those factual memories. And the same goes with if it was a bad experience. You know, sometimes people might say, oh, it doesn't matter. I had an argument with mum, but she won't remember. Well, they may not remember what the argument was about, but next time they see that person, they might still have those feelings of upset or anger. So I think that's a really good, for me, it really helped me understand what dementia was, and hopefully, you know, that, like I said, if you were to build a new building for somebody with dementia, you can kind of think about those things, and also think about, you know, if someone gets stressed coming into your building, well, they may not know why they came there in the past, but what they might think is, oh, I was really stressed when I was in that building. So it's just kind of applying all these learnings and rules to the built environment. So why is it important for us to be dementia friendly? So inclusivity is really important. You know, where possible, all events should be appropriate or available for everyone. So they should be dementia friendly, and no matter whether your event is specifically for people with dementia or just an ordinary event, it should be dementia friendly, because, well, I'll talk about the reasons later on, but especially for those ones that, if it's an Alzheimer's conference, the people who attend those conferences often have Alzheimer's or dementia, and they're the people that we learn from. As a researcher, I spoke with lots of people with dementia and I learned a lot from them. So we need to have them involved in these conferences, and we want to make the space for them, you know, a space where they feel comfortable and aren't going to get stressed. It links to the SDG goals, the UN SDG goals. In the main, it's goals 10 and 3. So the goal 10 is about having awareness about dementia. It's about social participation of people in dementia. And this is where conferences come in, you know, to have their participation in conference. Just because you've got dementia, it's really unfair to say, oh, well, you're not going to be coming to these conferences. So this is what the SDG goals of inclusivity kind of try and promote. And then there's SDG 3 as well. And that's, whilst it's mainly about healthcare, they do mention the need for flexible homes for people with dementia. And I know that's homes, but I think that can be applied to all buildings, really. People are living longer and the retirement age is increasing, which means we are getting more people working in the workforce. So this is something that needs to be considered, because generally the people who are attending our conferences and our meetings are within, you know, are still working. And it's actually a legal requirement for an employer to, you know, to make adjustments should they need to for a person who's working with them has dementia. There's the active aging policy framework for promoting healthy and productive aging in the workplace. Then there are people, I mentioned it before, who have early or young onset dementia. There's nearly 71,000, and 18% of those, as of 2022, I think it was, were still working. And these are people with a diagnosis. We must remember that there will be a lot more people who have early onset dementia that we just don't know about, or they don't know about. So those people, as I've just said, they need to be included in the workforce, in the potential of going to these conferences. And the adaptation of certain physical attributes of a building can really help them when they're attending your conferences or meetings, and can basically just make their life a little bit easier. So the built environment, in the last 2 decades, there has been increasingly amount of work out there. There's been more research, there's more publications in the area. There's been information since the 80s, but in the last 2 decades, really, that's been grown and grown, and more interest. And there's an understanding now of how positive an impact or negative impact a built environment can have on a person with dementia. Most of this evidence is in the acute setting, or, as I said, in care homes or in their own homes. But that's not to say that a lot of these learnings can overlap. And I'll be talking about those later in the presentation. There are some that obviously we can't apply. For instance, if we're looking at doing a care home, building a care home, we'd make sure that all the rooms had pictures of the person who lived in that room, would have a picture of them, so that if they leave their room, they look at the doors, they see their door has a picture of them, they know that's their door, that's their room. Or the outside space, we'd make sure that pathways lead back to the entrance and the exit, so it, you know, generates independence. People can leave the care home and know that they can get back on their own. These are really for, like I said, more care homes or acute settings, but there are other learnings that can be applied across different environments, which have been in certain areas. So in the UK, because of this research, because of these publications, we are definitely seeing more buildings that are being built for people with dementia, and we're definitely seeing more adaptations for people with dementia. You might not notice when you go to a hospital that, you know, the changes, but it's definitely happening. So in terms of the solutions that we can have, they don't have to be expensive. As I said, a lot of them can just be adaptations to the built environment. You don't have to be thinking, oh, well, it's not worth me doing it because I'm not building a new venue. You can make quite easy changes in your building to make the experience of your environment a lot more easier for that person who is coming through the doors. And we also, you know, we know that having that positive experience in the physical environment will mean that people won't get stressed, they won't get confused, they won't be disorientated. And actually those kind of symptoms can really make the dementia worse. You know, stress isn't good for a person with dementia. So making sure you have optimum design in your building can really help a person with dementia. So I've just got some general built environment tips here. I think that a lot of these you could do in your existing building. As I just said, that these are pretty generic and can be applied across the different types of buildings. They are inexpensive in the main, and as you know, there are things that if you look into it, that if you were starting from fresh, you would do differently. Maybe you wouldn't be having these fancy taps that actually I can't. I sometimes stand there and don't know how to use it. Is it a pedal on the floor? Is it a sensor? So if you already have an existing building, obviously there's things that you can't do if it was a new whether it's a new one, but these I think you can look at and really apply it. And you'll see there's quite a lot of overlap between these. So colour is a really big thing. The wrong use of colour can cause disorientation and falls, and can create an impression or barrier to the depth. So by that, if you have, for instance, if you have colours that are very similar on a wall and a floor, a person with dementia may not be able to tell, and they could actually walk into the wall. Or if the door is the same colour as the wall, they won't be able to find the door. Or if you have something on the floor which is dark, they may see that as a hole in the floor. So what the literature advises is contrast. So having a wall and a door, same colour, but a contrast. or the floor and the wall, same colour, but a contrast, so that it's not too much colours, which might cause distress, but we've got the contrast between them. Patterns, that they can really confuse somebody with dementia, either on the wall, the ceilings, or the floors, anywhere really, because patterns, again, it's about the colour. If they are different colours with a pattern, they can look like 3D objects. So what you might see is if you've got like a flowered carpet, you might see somebody trying to pick it up from the floor, somebody with dementia trying to pick it up, because actually that looks like it's 3D. So wherever possible, really, we would advise venues, meeting rooms, to have plain or at least mottled surfaces. They're much better. Lighting, so poor lighting can cause disorientation, eyesight's failing, they can't find their way around, or signage isn't bright enough so they can't see where they're going. So effective lighting means that they can see not only the signs, but the entrances, the rooms they need to go into, their pens, their papers. So having that really nice, bright lighting can help. So floor coverings, this kind of overlaps with colours and patterns, but again, the wrong ones can cause falls and confusion. So as I said, dark mats or shadows can look like holes. So if you have a big welcome mat outside your building that's dark, that can look like it's a big hole. So somebody with dementia won't want to go over because they think they'll fall down a hole. Or slippery surfaces, shiny surfaces can look like they're wet or slippery. So again, somebody with dementia might have to walk on it really carefully or will avoid walking on it. And again, like I said, pattern colours change in depth. So again, plain flooring and softer is best. So I'm not saying always carpets, obviously that can't be, but not a really hard floor. Now, toilets is a really big thing for a person with dementia. It's a big thing for all of us. We want to know when we go into a building that we'll be able to find a toilet when we find it. And if we can't, it can obviously lead to embarrassment. So incontinence coupled with disorientation can really make the experience of a venue really stressful for a person with dementia. So what we say is that you should have clear signage of where the toilet is, perhaps have toilet doors color coded so they can tell the difference. Okay, so all the green doors are toilets. You can tell a person with dementia, or any person. A lot of these things can apply just to everybody, but telling somebody who's coming to your event, all the doors in green are toilets, so super easy to find. Again, just talking about kind of where that person might be at this stage, hand towels instead, or maybe as well, because you've probably already got the hand dryers in your toilets, but maybe put some hand towels in so that at least they're there and they can wipe their hands. And obviously space for assistance, because depending on what stage of dementia somebody's at, they may require a larger toilet so somebody can come in and help them. So mirrors. A person with dementia may not understand the concept of a mirror, and that is that if they see a reflection, they may not recognize themselves. So they may become distressed because they think, why is this person looking at me? Or again, they may recognize themselves, but just don't understand how there's two of them. So actually, what can be done is that they could be removed or they could be covered. Obviously in toilets, this is difficult if you're working with an existing building, but if you had them in your meeting room, perhaps think of covering them up or removing. But the same applies for when it's dark. When it gets dark and we get a reflection on a window, it's probably a good idea to close the curtains or put down the blinds just so they don't see that reflection. The entrance, it's really good to have some support at the very beginning of the person's journey to your meeting or through the venue. So having signs and cues to help, someone to greet them at the door. It's really reassuring to have a familiar face. Maybe you had the face of the person on the website that's going to be the person at the door, but at least to have somebody there to welcome them and show them where to go. Again, like I said, this can apply to all your delegates. It doesn't have to be just a person with dementia. And then effective wayfinding. For all of us, when we go to some of these venues, they're really big. It can be very hard to find your way around, and getting lost can be really stressful. So what's important is to have really easy to read and clear information. You can have signs with pictures on, so they're easy to understand. We've talked about having colour codes, making sure that toilets and exit signs are really clear, people know where they are, and landmarks can be used to help. So you could say you'll be able to find the toilet next to the large plant, or just having things, you know, if someone's asking you where the toilet is, you can use these landmarks just to help them. So I thought it'd be useful or interesting to include some examples of the signage that are used, because it seems to me that these are that's a really easy, inexpensive thing to do to make a person with dementia's experience of your building a lot easier. So obviously you have here the wording, which is in really clear text font, and then you've got the pictures. So toilet's got a picture of quite an old-fashioned toilet, you can see there. The lounge, picture of the chair, and so forth. You can see at the moment, conference room and meeting room, they don't actually, I was looking to see if there was one on the Alzheimer site or anything. There doesn't seem to be a specific one, but you can see here, these are adaptations that other organisations have used. And then having the proud to be dementia friendly is something that if you undertake the dementia friendly training, you could have that there. That forget me not flower is really recognisable to a person with dementia, or the carer of a person with dementia, or even the researchers. So they know if they see that, if you see the badge or if you see the sign, that means that, you know, they can come to you and you'll be able and happy to help them. However, now built environment is really important, and we've talked about, you know, the need to be try and make your built environment as dementia friendly as possible. And I think, as I said, some of those tips will help to make that experience a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. But I wanted to also, through my research, and I've done a number of listening events with people with dementia and their carers, and I received this feedback, which I think was really interesting. So whilst built environment is important, preparation is also key. So giving people plenty of information about the venue, how will they get there, what's the parking like, is there parking close to the building if that, you know, if they need that, what landmarks should they be looking out for, or if they're taking public transport, what will that be like? The entrance, what does that look like? Because they don't want to get there and then be worrying about how to get there. So having all this kind of preparatory information can really help. Then collateral, so make sure your website, your marketing and your event materials are dementia friendly. So that means using really clear and explicit language on everything. Again, I don't think that this just needs to be for people with dementia. It's great if there's easy to understand information out there for everybody about your event or your venue. Use contrasting colours. Make sure your font is large and clear. And there is, if you go onto the Alzheimer's Society website, there's actually guidance of which font is the easiest or the best to use. On your website, make sure it's easy to navigate, that there's signage there of how to get to the programme, to learn about the speakers. Make sure that that's really easy for them, because you want people with dementia to attend, and if the first thing that they're seeing isn't dementia friendly, then they're probably not going to be joining the event or visiting the venue. But it is the people in and around the building which are key to making a difference. So having friendly and welcoming staff who understand the needs of someone with dementia can override the biggest design problems. So just having that understanding, like thinking back to that bookcase analogy, if somebody's really confused in the toilets or doesn't understand the lift, understanding that that's because maybe they didn't have lifts, or they didn't have that kind of toilet, or they didn't have that kind of tap when they were younger. Having that kind of knowledge can really help, and not losing patience, helping them, supporting them during the journey around your event. But that's not just the venue. I think it's really important to hear that actually we should have the bus drivers and the people in the local shops and the train stewards and all the different people who are involved with coming to your event and meeting trained or at least educated in dementia. And again, I think this is not just if you're having a dementia event, but for any event, because as we've spoken about before, many people who will be attending the events can have dementia. So I'm just going to pop out of the session to show you a quick video of what it is to become a dementia friend and why it's so important, and then I'll go back into the sorry, my fault. I'm just going to get just going to get the video up for you. Okay. So you should all be able to see that.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Well, we just can't hear it at the minute, Kate. Is the only thing.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I just can't hear the video at the minute. I can see it. I can see it. Like it's all fine. It's just I just can't hear it. I don't know if it's different for anyone else.
I can put the subtitles on.
Yeah. No. I mean, yeah.
Should I do that?
Yeah, that definitely works.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just. Okay. Jordan, I'm just going to go back into the PowerPoint.
Oh, I'm on mute. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. It should just be able to, if you just share again with the PowerPoint, it should just re-enter.
So that was, I'm sorry if nobody could hear it, but that's a video about people who've done the Dementia Friends training, and it was just giving you an example of how it can be applied in and around different buildings. And I know at the end it said you are now a Dementia Friend, but actually you have to do a little bit more than just watch that one video. But if you go onto the website, you'll be able to see more information. So I just thought it'd be interesting to let you know about these two really amazing things that happened. So in 2023, Wembley Stadium became the first dementia-friendly national stadium, which is fantastic. What they did was not so much with the physical environment, but a little bit about what we were talking about a couple of slides ago. But they trained their public-facing staff. So, for example, their stewards and people who were working in and around the building. So that will have been the dementia-friendly training. They also ensured that their ticketing and the receipts and the information on the website was all dementia friendly. And then they just, on their website again, had information about like the shuttle buses and the lifts that would be available to people specifically with dementia, just so that getting there would be easier and less stressful. And then the other example I want to give, and I know this isn't actually dementia, but actually if you get Parkinson's, it can sometimes lead to dementia. But I thought this was a really interesting case study, which could be applied to an Alzheimer's conference. But the host of the World Parkinson's Congress, they have to be Parkinson's ready. And that means that they need to train the people in the venue and the people who are going to be involved and meeting people with Parkinson's and the delegates. They have to be trained in helping people with Parkinson's. So for instance, I understand that if someone with Parkinson's were to fall over, you shouldn't go and pick them up or help them up. They want to have their independence and do it themselves. So they were trained into all these different areas. And that would be similar to the Dementia Friends training. And the amazing thing with this is that when this has happened in the past in the different host cities, that learning's not lost. You know, they do the learning for that conference, but then when the conference leaves, all those people have learned all this really valuable information about Parkinson's, and they are able to share it with their friends and their families. And I think this is something that we could also do for Alzheimer's conferences. And then this is just a list of resources. I think you'll get this presentation at the end, or if not, as I say, I've got my email address here. So you're more than welcome to get in touch or to connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can have a chat. If you have any questions, then please feel free to drop me a line. I'll stop presenting. And then I don't know if anyone has any questions. I know it's bang on 1:45, so you probably all have other places to go. But if anyone wants to have a discussion or a question, or happy to have that after this, then feel free. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, no questions from me. Just a thank you. Obviously, seeing things like the signage that is always so simple and, like you say, cost effective, and that people can do, probably can get off this call and print out some signage. It things like that, and like you mentioned at the start, I know I personally have experienced it in personal life as well. So to just kind of see these little things that can be put in place, maybe not only in professional but in personal life as well, it's great. So I just wanted to say thank you from myself, and I'm sure from the rest of the guys on the call here. Yeah, it's been really helpful. And to all of you that are still on the call, I will. You will receive, I think, a feedback form. I don't think it will come from myself. It will come from Yulia. So if you could fill that out. And Kate, if you send me the link to that video, I will include that video, the link to that video, in the feedback form email, just so you guys can see it with the sound on, and in case you do want to share it with anybody else, that's absolutely cool as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jordan. Sorry that the sound didn't work.
Oh no, don't you worry, don't you worry. These things happen. Like you said, I mean, the subtitles were there, so I still absolutely got what the essence of the video. It's just, yeah, in case anybody does want to get the full effect, then I guess I'll include that link within the feedback form email.
Thanks very much. Thanks for attending, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.